one needs to make it a little bit more visible why we are having a talk on this theme of artificial intelligence. Why is it so important? Because normally when things in terms of artificial intelligence, all the comfortable things of driving the car by itself, and one can have a party by the side inside the car, or all the machines functioning and doing all the household work and everything so that one has more leisure and all that. So it is very important to understand that it is not artificial intelligence in itself which is a problem. It is what way we use it and what potential it has in the later development which is now taking place. For example, now with artificial intelligence, you can create virtual personalities who look and speak like real people, and they are sometimes used in certain way to present things as if they are from a well-known media or some network, and people who are not very consciously and critically considering all these things will believe that whatever they bring out like that, one imagines that this is real news. It's only one example. It is possible to create a alternative idea of the reality when one is not very alert that that is manipulable in many ways, and especially with the artificial intelligence, where within short period they can create whole articles and whole presentations, where they can make news items which look like real but which is somehow serving the prejudicial interests of someone. So the use of this intelligence becomes much more easy for the common man also, and in the hands of people who want to misuse it, who want to use it only for the narrow, limited idea of their advantage, serving their interests, but not considering what implications it has. So that is where the whole difference is to be seen. Who is using it? For what purpose? What is the intention behind it? What is the understanding in this person who is using it? I differentiate between cleverness and intelligence in this way. Cleverness is when somebody is using a certain quality of intelligence with a one-sided view of themselves and the reality. That means what we normally call an egocentric personality, where somebody is seeing himself or herself in a narrow context, not seeing and understanding the deeper interconnectedness of reality, where the commonness is not considered and brought into visibility. So such a person with vested interests, with interest to gain power, to control or manipulate people, using artificial intelligence can become very dangerous. And you can see it is not just a fiction, it is not a fear which is in the air in an abstract way. It is going on, it's happening. It was happening in USA when one president who was losing in the election has been going on repeating that his election has been stolen, that he's the one who has been victorious in the election. Even though all the people who were working in responsible positions with him, and the Justice Department where he was appointing the people who were loyal to him before, they all told him that it's not true. The whole manipulation which you're afraid of is not happening. It has not happened. But because it was advantageous to his image and he wanted to perpetuate to be in the power, he was going on saying things which was channeled through certain media. And people who are only watching these channels started believing that this is the reality, this is the truth. So, this one-sided way of looking at things in an uncritical way by the people, and the people who are using it with vested interests, with the egocentric way of going, they become the real problem when there is so much power easily available, which has come through the manifestation of the developments in science. It is the same thing. It is like atomic energy in the hands of people who are having vested interests, who wants to pursue their continuation of holding to the power, who wants to assert and control people. They can misuse it very easily. They can threaten people. They can create such a fear, and they can say all kind of things to cover up. So in the same way with the artificial intelligence, it is going very much more complex, very much more subtle. In my childhood, there was a local journal which was bringing out certain sayings of a wise person. And one of the things which he was saying was, whatever be the culture or religion of somebody, the person should be good. In later years, I was considering it, and I saw that this has much deeper implications. Because if the person is good, means the goodness is coming when you are considering the common factor, when you are considering not only yourself as a narrow personality and thinking in terms of what is advantageous to you and just pursuing vested interests in a relatively childish way, but when one is considering the nature of the reality, understanding it more deeply, and acting out of this deeper understanding, that is how the real goodness comes to manifest. Goodness is considered good because it is opening the vision. You are going beyond the narrow idea of yourself as a personality, as a one who is just belonging to one group or one particular interest, but is considering what is valuable, what is reality, what is true. So this becomes very significant, that people who are going in a conscious way in life and understand what is good in a healthy sense, in a deep sense, when they are using all these capacities, they will use it for the welfare of humanity. So it is not the artificial intelligence in itself which is a problem. It is how it can get used, how it can get misused, how it can be to control, to manipulate, to limit people from opening and flowering. That is where our awareness has to come, our attention has to come. Because that is what is going to make a difference when it becomes conscious to everybody. How we get manipulated, what is our part in this? That is why I am wanting to make talks on this theme, so that it is not just only about artificial intelligence as if it is some scientific discovery which is doing some good to someone. It is the whole developments which are connected with it, the whole impact which it can have on humanity and the world. In a very interesting way, one of the films which were in the end of the last century coming out which is called 2001: A Space Odyssey, there is an interesting situation where the computer and its artificial intelligence is in the beginning used as a support to help all the people to go into the outer space and work things out. But as many of them died and now there was only this one person and this artificial intelligence manifesting in the computer, working independently on itself. So it became almost like a competition between these two, and it became necessary for the human being to outwit the computer and its one-sided way of looking and reacting. So in this film, it's very interestingly portrayed, this challenge when the so-called intelligence, which is the artificial intelligence in these things, has certain one-sided way of looking at the reality and don't have the connection to the deeper aspects of life, don't have access and sensibility for the wonder of life, the beauty of life, the significance of the Creator and the creation, not having the sense of sacredness. That what is based only on logical, rational interpretations, which is like a crystallized form of cleverness, that is the danger. When the artificial intelligence is in the hands of people who are using this kind of capacities, it becomes destructive. It becomes dangerous. But we have to become alert about it. It is not only the artificial intelligence and the development of that in the scientific area what is the problem. The problem is also in individual life. We are also having inside us the inner automatism. And now the neurological studies are making it visible that we use only 5% of our capacities of understanding in the normal day-to-day life process. 95% are just repetition of certain conditionings, and we are following unconsciously and automatically these 95%, often without considering what is good, what is sensible, what is true. And this is the challenge. This is the real challenge because it is all interconnected. When we are able to understand ourselves more deeply, we are also able to use the artificial and the scientific developments in a healthy way. But when we don't understand ourselves and the nature of our conditioning and our own traps, then we are easily falling victims into using these developments and the capacities which science is providing for narrow, one-sided way of going about life, which becomes destructive because the reality is, whether we like it or not, whether we want it or not, whether we are aware of it or not, the reality is a deeply interconnected reality. That is what is meant when it is said in the deeper, insightful teachings that it is a non-dualistic reality. Or in religious teachings also it is expressed in another way that everything is essentially divine. Or in the Islamic prayer as it is coming out, there is nothing other than Allah. What it implies when it is considered is that everything is deeply interwoven. Everything arises from the same source. But it's not enough if we are just speaking about it and having all these words around it. It is important that it becomes a realization in the individual life. Otherwise, the words of non-duality or Advaita, the words of godliness in everyone, or the words that allies the basis of all, it is all words. It has to become our realization. It has to become an understanding which is not a blind belief. It is not following somebody. It's not agreeing with somebody. It is not just trying to imagine some beautiful thing. When it becomes an insight through your deepening of awareness, then you can also see that all what is there in the world, all what life offers, depending on our kind of awareness, we can use it healthily, intelligently, in service of life, in service of love, or without the right understanding, we can go into all kind of clever ways of using it for narrow advantages, for gaining more power, gaining more prestige, for controlling, to manipulating, to prevent people from developing. So there is a great danger, and this is why it has to be all considered and understood very courageously and honestly, because it is our deep honesty towards ourselves and in facing the reality which is going to play the real significant orientation. The important thing also to understand is that those who look carefully and deeply realize that the duality with which the dynamics of the world is existing, where things are seen in a relative way, where we need darkness to understand light, where we need the so-called bad to understand the good, where we need to see what is wrong so that we can orient to the right. This is in the game of the life. This is in the nature of the reality, that life is existing with this polarity. But we need to understand it in a careful and deep way. And one of the things which I would like to bring the attention is, the polarities are existing apparently like light and darkness. Darkness exists as long as there is no light. But when light comes, where does the darkness disappear? And it is something very similar in a deeper sense. The so-called bad person is only bad, destructive, inhuman, unsensitive, criminal, as long as this person is not conscious of his or her own reality. Deep within, you can see it in the case of the child who is not yet conditioned with any kind of concepts and beliefs. Every child is coming to the world with a quality of innocence, playfulness, curiosity, a quality of joy, a quality of wonder. This is the quality deep within everyone. This is the divinity which is in everyone. So deep within everyone is godly. We can put it in different words, but deep within everybody is good. Therefore, we need to reconsider the way to deal with the bad, to deal with that what is happening in the world as unsensitive, destructive, not by just fighting against it as if somebody is fighting against the darkness with sword and guns. One has to understand the nature of the reality. One has to learn to answer to the challenges so that it becomes in the long run a healthy development. And there's an ancient saying which says that what is truly good for one human being is good for all. This is a very valuable insight because it simply reminds that we are in a non-dualistic reality. We are in a reality where everything is interconnected. Everyone is interconnected. And the more we look carefully and deeply, the more it becomes visible that everywhere life is manifesting in such wondrous ways. As we will bring our attention more carefully to look at what we normally take for granted, we take our day and night and the movement of the earth around itself and around the sun for granted. We take day and night granted because we think it's all how it is. The earth moving around the sun and turning around itself, creating the seasons, the quality of gravitational force manifesting in our planet, and the kind of distance which is kept between the earth and the sun. All this going so exactly, so precisely. We don't consider it that when this earth go a little closer to the sun, everything will be burned. When the earth will move a little bit away from the sun, everything will be frozen. We take it all for granted. We don't see that there is an incredibly ungraspable intelligence which is behind the whole manifestation of life. And it is unmeasurable universe where even with the biggest telescopes, they are trying to find the boundaries for the universe. They are not able to find a boundary. Life is so mysterious. But there is such care, such sensibility, such playfulness, such aesthetic sense that makes it possible for us to be here. That makes it possible for us to feel comfortable sitting here and considering things. But behind it all is so much fine, deep intelligence. Behind it is so much sensibility and insight, so much joy, so much playfulness, so much celebration. We don't bring our attention to all these things normally. We are often getting trapped in our mundane day-to-day life process and engaging ourselves with this. And very often life passes by and we don't realize that everything what we have is a wonder. Only when death comes and everything cannot be held on anymore, suddenly we are shocked and surprised when we have not been considering during the life the nature of the reality. What I am trying to bring into attention through all this is that we are we are required, it's important for us to inquire, understand the nature of the reality, experience who we really are, what is possible, what is not possible. We have become so much used to being logically, rationally defining and believing that the way we see things is reality. When we carefully consider it, we will see that we are not seeing the reality. We are only projecting into that what is there, interpreting it through the conditionings, the values, the standards, the norms which we have put, and creating an idea of reality which is very relative. Relative in this sense, like what is considered good and valuable in one society, what is considered normal, maybe totally seen as abnormal and false in another society. We can see it in our kind of food habits. In one society, you may be eating certain kind of things. In another society, eating that will be considered very strange. In one society, you are drinking alcohol, and it is considered normal as a sign of friendship. But in another society, it may be seen as something very dangerous. It is not that we can say that our way of looking at things is absolute and right. We can see that the same reality can be perceived from different angles, and many different developments have come which needs to be reconsidered, which we need to confront more wakefully in the course of our development. Then we can see that we can take all what is valuable from any background, because it is not what is absolutely right, it is what is relevant now, what is intelligent now, what is valuable, what is significant. That is how the idea of goodness is not just an idea of goodness like a computer which has a certain fixed concepts and definitions. A human being is capable to look in the now, apply these orientations, and respond to the moment. And this is the difference between a healthy, intelligent state of being with the reality, or where artificial intelligence just follows certain logical, rational definitions and frames and tries to push something into the game of the world, which in many occasions may be fitting, but you have to see that it is not to be taken for granted, and we should not settle in the belief that this kind of artificial intelligence can replace the whole requirements of our life to make it in itself valuable and healthy for the human being. One has to understand the possibility and limitation of it, and also see what it does to the human being. When we are giving up many of the areas of our considerations and leave things to just the artificial intelligence, it may be practical in certain moments, but it is just like when you are not using some parts of the body for some period, then it starts shrinking. It starts losing its capacity to function. One has to question, is it possible that when we are not using our capacity, when we are not using our brain, when we are not using our fantasy, when we are not using our imagination in the conscious and right way, will it become a barrier when we want to live life of love and joy, of freedom and peace? Can it be possible when we are not really living the fullness of our potential in the right way? We have to question. It's not just blindly believing or disbelieving. It's not blindly following somebody or being against somebody. It's not going about it in political slogans and fighting. It's a question of confronting the issues, being courageously open to look at uncomfortable factors in oneself, confronting our fears, confronting our settlements, confronting our beliefs, which we are holding to because we are used to it, confronting our desires, our greed, our clinging. So it's a very delicate thing which is required of us when we want to go about life in a healthy way. And from that perspective, one can say the challenge of the artificial intelligence is making such an inquiry even more urgent, even more important for the individual and global development. Only when we know that life has given us the capacity not only to do the right thing, but also to make mistakes, to do the wrong thing. It's a respect. If we can only do the right thing, then we are like a machine. We can be programmed to believe, make certain things which are considered right, but that is not the real rightness, because the rightness is always connected with being in touch with the reality, and the reality is an ongoingly moving and changing process. It is not a fixed reality. Like the Greek philosopher Heraclitus says, you cannot enter into the same river twice. Everything in life is changing. Not only the river is flowing and the water which is there in this moment is flowing somewhere else and there's new water coming. The person who is entering into the river is also going on changing. The more we are aware, the more we become capable to see that we are blessed to be in this life process. This is a wonder. This is the mystery. And being in the human body is giving us the capacity not only to understand and awaken to the beauty, but also to become free, to become clear, and to be again in tune with the wholeness of the reality, in deep admiration, in celebration, and live the potential of love and peace. But we cannot take it for granted. It is not something which happens automatically. That is how it is in the nature of our reality. Life has given us this chance. The Creator has made it possible like this, but it is left to us to question, to consider, to understand. So a conscious inquiry, a conscious search for the truth, a conscious way of questioning, who am I? What is the reality? What is the truth? Becomes very, very urgent, very, very important. And that is how we can also deal with the challenges brought by the artificial intelligence, so that we can see what is it that can get manipulated in me. What is it that can be brought into misuse. We know that all the advertisements are working with using the areas of fear and greed. They bring the attention to certain things so that we are attracted, we are fascinated. That is how the salesmanship is going. To some extent it is fine as a part of the playful process of life. But when it becomes combined with this scientific developments which gives very deep interference with human nature, which can create illusions which looks like real, which can create falsities which looks as if this is real, then there is a great danger, and that is what we need to be aware. So it is two things. On one thing, to understand our individual responsibility and to see that we are not allowing ourselves to get manipulated, and in the same way we are not getting into the temptation and misunderstanding to misuse the power. The goodness is there in the human being as a potential, but the goodness can be alive and manifesting in life when we question, we confront, we courageously look into the state of all what is taking place in us. Bring awareness in the moment. Because when you look carefully, you can also see life is always in the now. The past is gone. The future is not yet there. The past is just the memory. The future is just in our projection of imagination. But life energy is now. And when you are bringing your attention to the now and are ready to answer to the challenges, you also bring your whole potential into aliveness. Then the 95%, which is just the conditioned part, loses its power on you, and you start using the capacity, you start using the mind, you start using the logical, rational basis of it all to serve life, to serve the purpose of love, to serve for a peaceful, healthy, intelligent coexistence. That is possible, and that is a challenge. It is left to each of us, because it is not some politicians have to change or somebody else has to change. These are all representations of certain mentalities. When this politician is not there, and when the general tendency is going on the same way, somebody else will come, because that tendency to manifest there, these kind of qualities are unconsciously existing. So if somebody would come and say, oh, these are the things and this I can make for you, and I can control and manipulate and give false things, they will get into the power, they will get into manipulation. So it is not one personality or the other personality being removed. It is bringing awareness into understanding what is making something destructive. Why is this what is called bad bad? And why is it necessary to orient to the good? And why is the good good? The good is called good because when you orient to the good, you start opening your vision to see the interconnectedness of the reality. You are going beyond a narrow idea of yourself, and you see that I am connected with the whole. When you are good, when you are loving, you are going beyond the egocentric level. And when you are being unsensible, destructive, you are getting trapped in an unconscious idea of a narrow self and indulging in the power of the negative. That is why the deepening of the consciousness plays a very important role in how we will use all the knowledge, all the scientific developments in service of life or to serve as self-destructive, unhealthy process. With all the capacities of knowledge and the destructive potential which we have, we can destroy this earth. We can destroy the life on this planet. And to destroy is very cheap, very easy. You don't need much intelligence. Anybody with some kind of little cleverness can go into all kind of destructive process and misuse and be destructive. But to be loving, to be really good, it requires understanding, it requires courage, it requires a certain determination to orient to that what is true, that what is honest, that what is loving. So there is a temptation towards following the convenient and the comfortable because it looks, in the superficial way of looking, safe and convenient. But those who look courageously and carefully, they will see that it's not in just following that what is convenient and comfortable, but in looking what is in the long run sustainably good, what is in the long run able to withstand the trials and turbulences of life. And that is how we get ripe, we get inwardly clear. So we have, as individuals, a responsibility towards ourselves, and we need to recognize the urgency for it, and nobody else can do it for you. It's not some information which you can collect somewhere and just finish with it. It is going beyond words, confronting the reality more deeply, facing things which are there by looking and bringing our attention to all that what is taking place within us in the moment, where we are able to allow the real potential in us to come to manifest. Then we see that the artificial intelligence in the hands of those who have attained to an inner state of clarity and love can be a blessing. But without that understanding and insight, it can be very destructive and self-destructive. And because the power of these developments are so immense, you cannot go on postponing it indefinitely. Everybody who can understand, everybody who has some sensibility, has a responsibility to consider it more deeply and allow steps towards clarity and consciousness in their life, so that you live the potential of your divinity, you live the potential of the good in you and become a blessing to yourself and to everybody else. Is there any question in anyone who is here or who is participating from elsewhere?
There are a few things which I would like to speak about or to mention, but I don't know, it maybe takes too much time.
Make it as telegraphic as possible.
For example, yesterday I came to know that in Austria a very sensible person was committing suicide, it looks like. And he was one person who was in a kind of open, valuable way, but with background knowledge, because he has studied this all, speaking about the coronavirus and this fast vaccination which came out is mRNA-Impfstoffe, and he said that since many years on this Impfstoffe gets geforscht, I don't know in English.
Researched.
And always it was like this, that after they had this vaccination has to go through certain development, but it takes time to see what it does in the long run. And he also, for example, was saying that it can create thrombosen, and short while after it came out in the society that, for example, one vaccination, AstraZeneca, was causing a lot of thrombosen, but he was very, before he did this, came out with these videos, and he was also bringing out a book. He was very much connected with nature, with ecology and all this, and doing their beautiful things also. And as I came to know today, that through other person on YouTube who was connecting with him, that he was the last 1.5 year very desperate, because in Wikipedia they put him down really as really bad person, what they say about him. And also in Austria there are certain groups which were really hard with him. And also once I saw was last year or last year, he was getting invited in the television show, but it was a recorded one, it was not live. Then they just cut it out what they wanted and put him like he's coming to this esoteric Verschwörungstheoretiker. I don't know in English, Verschwörung. But he was not, he was just openly saying he's not against vaccination or for it. You have to decide, and there are the risks. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And this was causing now him to death. Looks like. Yeah.
You see, with all our knowledge, with all our understanding of science, with all our deeper insights and good considerations, we need also to make it conscious to ourselves that it is necessary to consider the Creator. It is necessary to consider the nature of the creation. And when we are not considering it more carefully and deeply, we easily come into conclusions on the basis of our conditioned way of looking and believe that the way we see this is absolute. And because when you don't have a deeper understanding and insight into the nature of yourself, it also happens that one is looking at others and their opinions and their approval. And when the others are saying you are good, then this person feels good. And the others are saying you are bad, then this person feels bad. No, this is not the right understanding. In the world there will be people who may be for you or against you. But that should not be your criterion to be here. Your criterion should be your understanding of who you really are. What is your reality in terms of the wholeness of life? What is the reality in terms of creation? What is your true self? And this is the understanding of everybody who has gone deeper into the nature of the reality, that those who have experienced the nature of themselves, they can accept all kind of different criticisms and opinions, because everybody is understanding each word differently. Everybody hears one word and they have their associations. And once you see that everybody is having their own view of the world, their own dreams, their own beliefs, and you cannot make it agreeable to everybody, and that should not be your point. It's not enough when people are agreeing with you or disagreeing with you. It is necessary that the human being awakens to the reality and finds the right basis. Otherwise, it becomes very easily like this, that one feels not understood and not supported, and there are people who are against, so one gets very depressed and everything looks senseless. And then the reaction of killing the body, it is not a solution, it is not an answer, it is a helpless way of going about things. It's an entanglement. But it is something sad that this person has not been looking a little deeper into the nature of the reality, so that the understanding of what one really is becomes possible. And it is awakening to the truth which is really liberating, because liberation means being able to look beyond the state of duality. Liberation means freedom from the entanglement in the conditioned idea of ourselves. That's why J. Krishnamurti used to call it the first and the last freedom is a freedom from the so-called self. The so-called self is what we are conditioned to believe, who we are, what we are. And to become aware that this conditioned idea of the I is not my truth. But we are living and we are used to being in the game of the world, settling in this periphery, believing that I am this role, I am this personality. But there was a time when this personality was not there. And there will be a time when this personality won't be there. Are you just this body and this personality? Who are you really? And it is the experiential understanding of the one who is living inside this body, one who is living inside and being in the development of the personality, which gives the real basis. That is why it is painful to see that people are going in this misunderstanding and suffering. But one can only remind everybody, while you still have the capacity, look deeper, inquire more into the nature of reality, experience the truth, what you are, beyond words and concepts. Because of this, the great Chinese mystic Lao Tse refused to write a book. And when he was under pressure to write a book, he started the book by saying the truth cannot be said, and that what is said is a lie. It's a very significant hint for the modern human being, because the reality is not just words and concepts in our mind. The reality is experienced when we are not trying to interpret and label things in boxes into any particular concepts. Then you are directly in tune, in attunement, in communion, in oneness with this mystery of life. So we can learn from the way things are manifesting. We can see that some people in their feeling of lostness destroy their body. Some people go amok and start taking machine guns and shooting around and killing others and destroying themselves. And this is happening on many levels. Some people are running behind power and trying to prove that the way they see things are real and right, and trying to gather political power and other kind of things to prove themselves right. And the wars are going on only because of such things. Wars are ego conflicts, entanglement in the ego without considering what reality is. Those who confront and question and come to the experiential understanding of what is, they are the ones who can help to look beyond and to bring the understanding so that we don't get trapped in the egocentric way of interpreting life, but come to the experiential understanding of what we are. Of course, this experiential understanding is not cheap. It is not collecting words and concepts from somewhere. It means confronting all what we believe ourselves to be, confronting our fears, confronting our identification with the body, confronting our calculativeness, confronting our desires, confronting our clinging, confronting the values which we hold to. And many of them, when you look carefully, you see that many of them are arbitrarily held because we have been growing up in a certain background. And in deeper observation, you can see that if I would have been growing up in another background, maybe I would take up those values. And that is where you realize that, oh, these are not the absolute things. And that is how you come into a deeper understanding of goodness. That is how you come to manifest the potential of love in you, because you see that life has created everybody as unique manifestations. Nobody else is like you. Everybody has unique conditionings. Even within the same family, everybody has different personalities. So once you see that, you can also see how can we compare? How can we judge? Life is manifesting wondrously to everybody, but then we can be playfully together. We can contribute to each other in such a way that through our understanding, we can use our minds, we can bring many playful aspects to celebrate life. That's why games are very important. Games are playful ways of manifesting life energy. When you can play football or basketball or tennis or this or that, you're having different rules of the game. And somebody can do something very good, somebody can do something else very good. But it doesn't mean that only when you are doing all these things you are somebody. When you understand yourself, you see the uniqueness and you respect the uniqueness in yourself and each other. And that is very, very important. Then you don't need for any agreement and appreciation from the others. You don't need that others has to validate you that you are okay. But when you don't understand yourself, you're always looking at the opinion of the others. And when the others look down upon you, then you think that I am not okay. And you are also judging yourself with the same standards and values from your conditioning. That is why you come into difficulty. So it's something of big misunderstanding when people are destroying their bodies as if through that their whole problem is solved. Maybe when you understand the nature of the deeper reality, you see that perhaps they are coming into greater problem because now they have to deal with the challenges which are unclear in them without having a body where you can work it out. So things are not so simple. Things have to be considered more carefully and deeply. But in life we are often falling into all kinds of misunderstandings, and this is the challenge. That is why those who understand are reminding, go deeper into the experiential understanding of who you are, what you are. Or like in the Christian teachings it is said, seek first the divine and all else shall be given unto you. These are very interesting hints. From any deeper teachings you can see that there are such reminders. But one has to experientially understand it. That is decisive.
For me, this was an example. For me, this committing suicide is for me also no solution. I also don't want to put it like poor guy, or because for me this is the example how the media, for example, can drive people into all kind of states of beingness when they are inwardly not ripe or have not attained a certain quality of integrity, or have not this luck to come to other perspectives in this life. Yeah. So one can also observe this with children. Yeah. In which kind of background they are growing up, they are picking this up blindly, unconsciously, and carrying it further. Yeah. And for example, I was seeing a documentary in China. Very little children in the lower school. The teacher has a laptop on the desk, and the children have a chip. And the chip is connected with the laptop, with the software. And the teacher can see when the children are more concentrated or not. And then and we all know we have a biorhythm. And so there are periods in the day where the biorhythm is more strong or less. But there it is like this, when the biorhythm or when this concentration is not so strong, they get a demand. And even parents are connected with this app and get informed. So the child gets in young age already pressed into certain how it should behave and how it should live. Yeah. So this is very, very strange things going on. Yeah.
That is what is happening when people use the knowledge and scientific developments without having a deeper understanding and insight into the nature of the reality. Then one is going on trying to push everything and to manage and to manipulate things without understanding the nature of the humanness, nature of love, without understanding the nature of the heart, without allowing the nature of the compassion. When everything is focused on so-called success, where competition and comparison and power becomes the primary value, then everybody is trying to become special, better than the other. So it's a kind of what you call generally a cutthroat competition. And the parents are also playing with it, and when it is told by the scientists as if this has to be like that, then many believe that that is better for them. So it requires more and more insightful and courageous confrontation with the reality so that it becomes understandable what is more important in life and what is the nature of the reality, what is decisive for a healthy human coexistence. So understanding our relation to the wholeness of reality, understanding ourselves being part of nature, and recognizing the non-dualistic dimension of our reality. That means recognizing the interconnectedness of all life, so that we are not constantly in this defensiveness and competition and fighting approach, but where we see that everybody else is a fellow traveler. Everybody is in their way trying to come in terms with life, wanting to be loved, wanting to be joyous, wanting to be understood, wanting to celebrate life. When people are always thinking in terms of being useful and being correct and being perfect, they get very tensed up. So it is sad that through the misunderstanding they are pushing things in this way. Perhaps the understanding will come sooner than later that such practices of unnecessarily pushing and overdoing things is not continuing. And that can only happen when more people of deeper insight are questioning and confronting. And that is also one of the reasons why I find it important to bring attention to the artificial intelligence and its possibilities and limitations. We have so much for this evening. We will continue tomorrow with second part of the talk.